Hi everyone, and welcome back to Bowdie Shorts, making law make sense in 15 minutes or less. So far in this trust series, we focused on express trust, declarations of trust, constitution, beneficial entitlement, and even had a look at purpose trusts as well. In every one of those topics, somebody was trying to create a trust. Well, what happens when that doesn't work? Or what happens when property is transferred and nobody is quite sure who is supposed to own the beneficial interest? Well, that's where resulting trusts come in. And today's question is, who gets the beneficial interest? Because that is exactly the problem resulting trusts are designed to solve. So what's a resulting trust? Well, a resulting trust is an implied trust. Unlike an express trust, nobody deliberately creates it. Instead, the law imposes it. And the purpose is simple. It's to identify who owns the beneficial interest when that is unclear. Now, resulting trusts exist because equity hates uncertainty. A trust lawyer would be likely to say, equity abhors a vacuum. If legal ownership exists, somebody must own the beneficial interest too. So what's the big idea here? Well, most resulting trust questions begin with a transfer of property. Person A transfers property. Person B receives property. The question becomes, did person B receive everything? Or did person A keep the beneficial interest? Now, there's some presumptions we have to consider here. And the law often has no direct evidence of what the parties intended. Perhaps the transfer happened years ago. Perhaps both parties have died. Perhaps nobody recorded anything. So the law uses presumptions. And think of these as starting assumptions. So the first assumption is property transferred for no apparent reason is not usually a gift. Instead, the law assumes that the transferor kept the beneficial interest. In other words, legal title goes to B, beneficial title stays with A. So as a simple example, Sam hands £100 to Mary. Nobody knows why, no card, no note, no discussion, no birthday, it's not a festive season, no evidence. The law starts by assuming Mary holds the money on a resulting trust for Sam. Now, why does the law do this? And students often find this surprising. Surely a gift is more likely. Maybe. But remember, this is only a presumption. So the law uses it when there is no evidence. If evidence exists, the presumption can disappear immediately. And we'll come back to that shortly. The second major situation arises during purchases. And the key question here is, suppose person X pays and person Y receives the legal title. Who owns the beneficial interest? So a house costs £400,000. Tess contributes £40,000. Maggie contributes £360,000. The house is registered solely in Maggie's name. Who owns the beneficial interest? Well, the law presumes ownership reflects contributions. Therefore, Tess owns 10%. Maggie owns 90%. This is called a purchase money resulting trust. Now let's look at the exam shortcut. Ask who paid, because in these questions, money matters. The beneficial ownership generally follows the contributions. Now, there's an important limitation here though. Not every payment counts. The contribution must usually be towards the purchase price itself and must be made at the time of purchase. Paying later generally won't create a resulting trust. Now let's look at something called the presumption of advancement. And this is the great rival of presumption. When we look at this great rivalry that exists, presumption of advancement actually starts with a very basic idea. Certain people are presumed to make gifts. Historically, that includes fathers to children, husbands to wives, and people who are acting as parents. In these situations, the law starts from a different position. So Richard buys a house in his daughter's name. Instead of presuming a resulting trust, the law presumes a gift. The daughter takes legal and beneficial ownership. Well, why is this different? Well, historically, these relationships involved a perceived obligation to provide financially for another person. Now, modern lawyers often describe this presumption as being outdated, but amazingly, students still need to know it for SQE purposes. So the key comparison here, resulting trust, assumption is that property wasn't intended to be a gift. Advancement, the assumption is the very opposite, that property was intended to be a gift. Now let's get to the good news. Neither presumption matters very much if we have evidence. Why? Because both presumptions are merely starting points. The court really wants to know what was actually intended. So suppose somebody transfers £500 as a birthday present. There is a card, a message, witnesses, everybody knows it was a present. Well, any presumption of resulting trust immediately disappears. A gift was clearly intended. So what evidence counts? Well, the crucial point is timing. The court wants evidence from before the transfer or at the time of the transfer. When it comes to later evidence, that's much less useful. A person cannot usually improve their case simply by creating favourable evidence later. Now we come to the second category of resulting trusts, and arguably the most important for SQE. These are the automatic resulting trusts. And the big question here is, what happens when somebody tries to create an express trust and fails? So a settler creates a trust for my best friends. The problem is the trust fails because nobody can identify with sufficient certainty who qualifies as my best friends. The trust lacks certainty. So the problem is that the trustee has the legal title, but who has the beneficial title? Somebody must. Well, equity's response is this. So equity says the beneficial interest goes back to the settler, and this is called an automatic resulting trust. Now, automatic resulting trusts appear whenever the beneficial interest is not completely disposed of. So examples include uncertainty, perpetuity problems, beneficiary principal problems, and failed contingent interests. So let's look at a contingent interest example. A trust says to Laura if she reaches 25. Laura dies age 22. She never satisfies the condition. Her interest never vests. So who gets the beneficial interest? Well, the property results back to the settler, an automatic resulting trust. Let's look at a beneficiary principal example. So suppose somebody creates an invalid purpose trust because there is no valid beneficiary. The trust fails. The beneficial interest has nowhere to go. So the result is it goes back to the settler through a resulting trust. So the golden rule here, whenever an express trust fails, is ask what happens to the beneficial interest, and most of the time the answer is a resulting trust. One final point. Students often panic about writing requirements, the formalities. Fortunately, resulting trusts are implied trust because they arise by operation of law. No special formalities are required. Even land can be subject to a resulting trust without the formalities needed for an express trust. So let's bring this all together. Resulting trusts solve ownership problems. They help when property is transferred, intentions are unclear, trusts fail, beneficial interests disappear. In each case, the law asks who should own the beneficial interest. So what's Bowdie's bottom line? Every resulting trust problem starts with one question: who gets the beneficial interest? If the property is transferred without clear evidence of intention, think about the presumptions. If an express trust fails, think automatic resulting trust. And remember, equity hates a vacuum. If legal title exists, somebody must own the beneficial interests. Resulting trusts are the mechanism equity uses to make sure that happens. Thank you for watching this episode of Bowdie Shorts. Please look out for the remainder of our trust videos available now on YouTube.